Hello, I am the cartoonist M. Rashid. I often, I'm sure a lot of you have as well, come across the guy who thinks that the only way we can stop the white supremacy is with its Black Mirror version of it. Black supremacy. Like everything they believe, they not believe, but propagandize about themselves to justify their wealth hoarding and the white racist aristocracy. These particular black people think that we have to do the opposite when that's a fallacy, because the only reason that white supremacy works is because it brings out the worst in them. The worst in them is their uber greed, this mega psychopathic like monopoly super greed is how they function. That's the only thing that holds them together is the big money, you know. And even in that, it wasn't by no means a perfect union. That's why I brought up a few videos ago the rise of communism in the 20th century and the jockeying of in position of all those competing proto-communist cliques. They were all trying to position themselves to be the that group that gets to rule the rest of them. It was not pretty. That 100 million murders of the Reign of Terror is how that jockeying of position went. So when it was over, the last clique standing is this family we deal with now. So the blood rain of them killing each other to be in this position is over. They're they have an uneasy peace among them, putting on a teleplay as if they're like opposed to each other in certain ways, but they're not. It's a game. These are the ones who have remained, and they've decided among themselves, okay, this is okay. So the blood that flowed showed that they were, yeah. So the concept of race first is their invention in order to, you know, as a tool to further their super greed cult. By no means is it a good idea to do the exact same thing they doing, but just in blackface. That's not the opposite of white supremacy. The opposite of white supremacy is celebrating our diversity. We are, instead of creating a flat whiteness that we all like group together to worship greed at the Bohemian Grove, instead of doing that craziness, we recognize that we are different in our different ethnicities. In the Quran, God said He made us different so that we can learn from each other. That it's good to be different. So anybody saying, oh, like, we're so, against each other and it's always so divisive and, we should just be one blanket person that thinks the same all around the world. Anybody's thinking that is a white supremacist pretending otherwise. No good comes from that. What we need is all of us celebrating us in our differences and coming together in our differences and learning from each other as interconnected, interconnected, what do you call it? Working together, for win-wins, So we learn from each other, we celebrate our differences, and we use our strengths to support the weaknesses of the others, and that's how it's supposed to look, and if any one of us gets bigger than the rest, you have to pull that one down. You got to sacrifice the lust and the temptation of bigness to want to rule over everybody, you have to sacrifice that. You have to control that, because that's a part of the uh, the bad things that happen that mess up the system for everybody. You cannot let that one figure become a trillionaire and now we all have to eat whatever his whims are. That's where we always go wrong at as a species. Stop worshiping that guy or that gal or whatever. There are no gods and goddesses among us. Kings and queens and all that stuff is only a temptation that leads nowhere but destruction. So, the opposite of whiteness is not blackness. Blackness from the beginning was a tool of whiteness. It's something to be exploited. Before we came to North America and the great experiment of America, and before they permanently delegated the enslaved blacks that were my ancestors over here into the bondsman class, before that happened, we didn't think of ourselves as by melanin and all that stuff. We were our different ethnic groups in the old country, all of us. Wiping that away and becoming white and black was a diabolical scheme that benefited only the fiend. Rhyme unintentional. So stop saying that that's the solution, because it's not. The solution is to be a strong political identity group. And once you're strong, join with other strong identity groups that you have will share certain interests with, and become a bigger, more powerful group for all your self-interest, and maintain the peace. That's the opposite of whiteness. Whiteness cares only about blood and hoarding, and by any means necessary, like maintaining his dominance at the expense of everybody else who doesn't worship him. You don't need the opposite, the blackface opposite of that. No one does. No one needs that. So stop saying that. It's stupid. Thanks. Peace.